Video games are quite the involved medium, where you have to make plenty of art, there's cinematography, acting, programming, sound design, music, so on and so forth. For my journey in game development, I need to make my own start in art, which is hard. I won't undersell my abilities. I've gathered a good bit of knowledge on basic art skills like bits of anatomy and color theory, all thanks to my YouTube Shorts feed, but I would need to learn plenty of styles and tricks to be able to make a full game. While I'm still a beginner, I've been able to start in a couple of areas which I can look back upon with a good bit of pride. Of course, I started with pixel art. My first day on working on it consisted of 3 projects, 2 collectible sprites and a small animation. There's not much to say with the sprites other than my small-scale attempts at dithering, which I'm actually still quite happy with. The rotating gear was a bit ambitious for me, as I tried to make use of a couple techniques I'd heard about, being smear frames and extremes. The idea was to make the gear look like it was spinning rapidly for just a moment. To do this, I made a wind up and wind down for the animation to really express how fast the gear was moving through a sense of recoil. I added smear frames to the transition into the extremes better, and voila! All in all, I was pretty happy with how it turned out. I made a few more animations over the course of the 2 weeks. First was a crystal pickup. I decided to make it with a bit of perspective with a shine animation on it. It took me ages to get the perspective feeling right, but after I got past all that, the other steps came quite naturally, such as the shading, for example. While animating the shine, I made sure to have the effect curve around the edges, and the only things I would have changed would be the speed of the shine, as I think it would have looked better if it was faster or more abrupt. The next animation was a simplistic stick figure focused on trying to get a better feel for animating movement. I made the limbs different colors to easily keep track of them, and I grabbed an art book laying in the classroom and studied it for about 2 hours to try and understand the animation process of extremes and easing into keyframes. The extreme in this case was landing on the ground, so I eased in and out of the midair pose to create this as the result, and honestly it looks really good. I'm pretty happy with it. Finally, I made a little knight. I really wanted to give the illusion of the knight turning while moving, so I separated each piece into layers. I wanted each part of the body to move to really emphasize the movement that was happening. The 3 components to simulate the turning body was the shading, the face, and the mohawk. With each of those, I ended up making a really nice animation, and I especially liked my use of colors here. The biggest issue was the back foot, how I forgot to downscale it in regards to perspective, which made it look really massive and just not nice, but the rest of the animation I was very proud of. After all the pixel art was finished, I moved on to skeletal animations for Unity. For the base, I had to make a figure with separated limbs, so I simply made a stick figure doing a bodybuilder pose, which I added quite the enigmatic expression onto. After that, I rigged the skeleton, quite simply started animations after that. I wanted to make a variety of animations, so I decided to focus on the most important 3 I could think of for any character, being running, jumping, and an idle animation. Most of the animations here took the same ideas from the pixel art animation The Stickman I made earlier, just with less work on easing since the engine did most of the movement for me. The process was incredibly quick to the point I decided to even make an extra animation in the spare time I had. It was one of a character waving, which took me a surprising amount of time. The main struggle was figuring out how to pace the animation, as the wave needed to be fast, but there also needed to be a decent amount of time between bringing the hand up and down. So, after I figured out the different extremes of the animation, I eventually got it working the way I enjoyed the look of. I also made sure to loop each of the animations appropriately by simply copying the starting position at the end. I also added some extra time for the character to stay still at the end of the idle animation to make it look a bit more natural rather than just instantly snapping to moving again to repeat the loop. After a long time trying to code an enemy object to be able to demonstrate the animations, along with a little bit of help from AI to accomplish that, I got a working program. I wanted to make a patrolling enemy to showcase the running animation, but I also wanted the enemy to stop at the end of the predetermined path to be able to play the idle animation for a second. I did this with some more simple code, adding in transitions between the 2 animations depending on whether or not the enemy was moving, and while the results were far from perfect, I'm really happy with how it ended up. Then came working on the tile map. I decided to make a small tile map with a goal of 3 biomes to be able to build a proper level. I initially wanted to have thick black outlines on all of my tiles, like the Brachy's assets, but I decided against it after just not liking the look. For each area, I decided to make 3 ground tiles and 3 decoration tiles. The 3 biomes I decided on were grass, desert, and ice, just to keep things simple. Once I had all the theme tiles done, I made some extra for the decoration and background, such as the different versions of water, cloud, sky, and even bridges for players to walk on. Once this was all done, I started making my level. My idea for the sand level was to make a cave/temple for the player to explore, but I felt there needed to be more appropriate lighting, so I decided to add shadows to my tile map. This was done by adding the appropriate code, and adding a giant light source that would follow above the player using the same script that would make the camera follow the player. So when the player entered the cave, it would be dark from the shadows because of the light source above it. I then ran into an issue where the bridges started looking strange with how they cast shadows under them, so I made a unique tile set where it would have collisions without casting shadows. This allowed me to make a nice set piece at the desert temple with a beam of light shining down on the altar as well. Though this setup didn't work forever, as when I was designing the mountain, the light source above the player was so low it would appear within the mountain, making some jarring effects. The level itself was simple but fun to make. I made the grassy level have basic jumps, introduced some secret walls, just being walls I put in the same layer as non-interactable decorations. The desert level consists of going into the cave I mentioned to solve an ancient puzzle and to find a secret altar. Then the mountain level has you going back and forth across the mountain while scaling it before reaching the peak. The only thing I really would have liked to change about this attempt was making more decorative tiles, as while I feel what I produced was serviceable, it was very lacking in certain areas of the game, especially the mountain and desert cave, which had single-colored backgrounds that were very bland to look at and didn't mesh well with the outside at all. Overall, I'm really happy with my progress, especially how quickly I've been able to adapt all these styles, as before my more high-quality works would have taken hours to complete. Now I feel I've been able to enjoy the fruits of my labor without sinking nearly as much time into it, even if there's still plenty of room for improvement. And I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed creating all the art.